The irony in all of this is what you just said, and that is they had little information then, but they did so much. But now you say we have so much at our disposal, be you a leader or a follower. Are we getting a result, or results commensurate with the kind of information we have at our disposal?
Well, yes and no. The answer is two-pronged in the sense that, you see, with a lot of information, the more research you need to do. With the more information you have, the more you need to be organized. With the more information you have, the more you need to be structured. With the more information you have, the more you need to think through, and you need to develop systems that actually use that information for the purpose of which you want. We have a weakness in this country, and it is we have a very poor attitude to data gathering and information, and that is why most of our decisions and our policy making is not really evidence-based. It's predicated on sentiment, predicated on other things that may not be objective enough to get us to arrive at the kind of decisions we should make.
That's supposed to be the basis of development.
That is supposed to be the basis of development, because development must be information-based. It must be fact-based. You are developing in a direction, there must be evidence that that direction you are taking is the best option, you see. And that is why it's a fantastic opportunity we have now, especially with this national conference thing coming up.
What would you say? I mean, one of the things that also strikes one, I think but the President also did touch on in his speech, is the growing difference.
Yes.
I mean, you talked about access to information for this generation.
Yes.
But a host of people will tell you that it's not access for everybody. Not everybody has the access. Some people, even as we speak, still do not have electricity in their own environment, not to now talk of internet connectivity.
Yes.
So how would you describe also the difference and what impact that can have on us as a nation?
Well, you see, one of Nigeria's challenges is inequality, right? And inequality we haven't been able to, some people are working on it, we're working on it depending on the background. And that inequality is reflected in the fact that some people have access and some people do not. So now what we need to do in terms of, meeting that challenge is to be able to ensure that we have an inclusive society. If we have a spirit of inclusion, whereby nobody left behind, whether it is in education, whether it is in information, whether it is infrastructure, when you have an inclusive society, you are likely to have less social tensions. When you have an inclusive society, you are likely to have people to contribute to economic growth.
Key that into the national confab. Let's say we have an inclusive conference.
Yes.
How does that help? Because this is just not the first time we've been talking and even coming up with results at different levels, be it different committees. Adopting such wouldn't be any problem for us?
Adopting the what? You mean the conference?
Yes, whatever that comes out of it.
No, you see, the point is this. If you look at previous attempts at having a conference, they were attempts predicated on driving a product, the decision of which was left out of the purview of everyone. That is, at the end point, there was nothing so-called a referendum. Now, from what I gather, this particular national conference is supposed to generate or end up with a referendum. And a referendum is the most inclusive thing you can ever have in any society.
How do we know that already? I mean, because this is supposed to be an advisory committee that's supposed to come up with a
I don't want to preempt. I don't know what the advisory committee is saying, but based on what those who have recently pushed for the national conference have said, because the whole idea is that it's supposed to be a constitutional conference. I mean, there are people who have spent the past 25, 30 years talking about this. And there are two things that have necessitated the conference. One, the crisis of legitimacy facing the 1999 Constitution and the fact that it was done in a manner that was not inclusive. Now, the current Constitution is sovereign. There is a sovereignty because whichever way you want to see it, in 1999 there was a sovereign. The sovereign resided in the military government, and that sovereign, right, was handed over to the president and the government via that constitution, which was sworn into by the Chief Justice, which gave it its sovereignty. So we have a sovereignty already. Now the point is this, it was not inclusively designed. However, sovereignty is not something you take for granted. Because of the structure and because it was a military decree, it continues to show the contradictions in terms, which is reflected by some of the problems we have in the country today. And that is why you have a crisis of legitimacy, whereby people find it difficult to identify with certain sections of that constitution. So it is a no-brainer that we need to discuss. It is a no-brainer that we need to dialogue, not only on constitutional matters, but on development matters. Because as I said, there are 3 issues that we want to target in this country. 1, social harmony. 2, economic growth. And 3, political stability within a geographical space called Nigeria. And if we don't get it right, and if you don't get your constitution right, you begin to lose, first of all, even the geographical space, as we did with Bakassi. Because the previous constitution actually gives, the current constitution, if you do a current x-ray of it, it actually gives, possibly, some would say, one person the authority to sign away the country.
Because one person? It's supposed to have been backed up by the National Assembly.
How did you lose Bakassi? Did you go to the National Assembly to confirm whether to give Bakassi out or not?
Is that a failing of the Constitution or certain individuals? Because they were supposed to go through ratification, domesticated or ratification, but that didn't happen.
You see, the Constitution enables, it either gives somebody more latitude to act in a particular way or more discretion to act in a particular way. It gives an opportunity for certain people to be included in a discussion or not to be included in a discussion.
With respect to that case? Or?
With respect to that and several other cases that might fall within the purview of that kind of case.
I see.
So it is a question that if you dig deep, I mean, everyone who was participant in the Bakassi case knows and knew that if our constitution actually compelled certain things, right, maybe we wouldn't have lost Bakassi.
This week, I mean, Chief Akinjide did say that, look, you can't get a new country or a great country by just changing the constitution.
Absolutely,
it has to be
true.
The attitude of the people.
That's true.
All of those have got to come into the mix.
I agree with Chief Akinjide. I agree with him. However, what makes people's, you put the nail on the head, it's the attitude. But the process, if I were involved in a process, if I were involved in a dialogue, if I was involved, if I was engaged in a product, do you think my attitude to that product would be the same as if I was not engaged in the product?
Okay, in this case, if you participated in the drafting of the books?
Not only, the drafting is one thing, but the dialogue that leads to the drafting. Everybody cannot draft a constitution, but everybody can make an input from their different perspectives, and it's possible, it's doable.